Welcome, I'm Dr. Danso, and today we're joined by a very special guest. Not only is she a GP, but she also has a degree in sports and exercise medicine, so I thought she'd be a great person to discuss diet and exercise. So welcome, Dr. Foley.
Hello, thank you for having me today.
Yes, welcome. So I think we'd start off by discussing what the sort of most common risks are with being overweight or being obese.
Yeah, so obesity and lack of physical activity both are directly associated with poor health outcomes and chronic diseases. In particular, things like heart disease, stroke, blood clots, hypertension, so high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, osteoarthritis, are all linked to both being obese and having low activity levels.
And you mentioned quite a few chronic diseases that are very common in the Afro-Caribbean community.
Yes, in particular, definitely Afro-Caribbean community has high numbers of high blood pressure and diabetes. So it's important to look at how lifestyle risk changes can necessarily improve those conditions, but more importantly, probably prevent them developing in the first place.
And I think that's key, really, just talking about prevention rather than having to, deal and treat these diseases long term. And how common do you think obesity and the associated complications are?
Well, in the UK, at the moment, it's estimated about 1 in 4 adults is classified as being obese, and again, 1 in 4 adults does less than 30 minutes of activity a week. So those numbers are actually high and actually getting worse. So it's something we need to consider.
Yeah, there's huge numbers. And what's the measure for BMI?
So BMI, body mass index, is the most widely used way of measuring someone's weight in proportion to their height.
Mm-hmm.
A BMI of over 30 is classed as obese.
Okay.
You can calculate your BMI online. There's loads of apps and calculators. The NHS has one. All you need to do is enter your weight and your height, and it'll give you your BMI and potentially give you a healthy weight range as well.
So what is a healthy diet?
It depends. I don't think you can say there's one healthy diet. That's not true at all. Your diet is going to vary based on your social background, your cultural and ethnic background, even your financial background will have an impact. But it's more important to think about sort of themes underpinning your diet to make sure that it's healthy for you. Firstly, including food from all the different food groups, if possible. So lean meats and fish for protein sources, eggs also. Dairy is another food group, or dairy substitutes if you are unable to eat dairy. Fruit and veg, grains, so rice, bread, pasta, and also fats. You need sources of fat, so things like oil, nuts, avocado, certain cheeses, all sorts of that.
And just to clarify, lean meat.
So lean meats are red or white meats, but from the less fatty part of the animal. You can have non-lean meats as well, but the majority of your diet should be based around the leaner side.
And should you include something from each of those groups in each meal?
Not necessarily, but you should make sure your diet generally includes things from each food group. It's probably impossible to include something from each food group in every meal, but if you across the course of a day you're able to get them all in, I would recommend definitely having a protein source with every meal, definitely, and fruit or veg with every meal, and then adding in your grains and your fats and your dairy when appropriate.
Is there anything else that you would recommend?
Yes, definitely water. Your water intake is a very important part of a healthy diet. Drink lots of water throughout the day is always recommended. There are numbers and how many litres or ounces that people should drink a day, or based on your weight, but generally I like to advise that you drink enough water regularly so that you pass urine regularly throughout the day and that your urine is clear.
Clear like this?
Not clear like that's not clear.
No? Can see through it?
No. That's not clear. Clear as close to water as possible, so very, very pale, straw-like yellow. It's a good sign.
So basically look like water.
Yes.
Okay, so some of us need to do some work.
Drink more. I was going to add one more point actually about portion sizes. So you can drink lots of water, which is great, and have food from a wide variety of protein sources. But if you're overeating for your body, that will, no matter what you're eating, lead to weight gain, and obviously that will contribute towards your risk of obesity and the medical complications associated with it. So it's important to consider, are you gaining weight with the portions that you're eating, and if you are, maybe reduce them slightly and maintain that at that level.
Okay, so essentially if you're trying to lose weight and you're either eating too much or not exercising enough.
Generally, yes, and a lot of people do find it difficult to take that on board, but evidence does show that most people who are not measuring or tracking their food intake or physical activity either firstly underestimate how much they're eating by up to about 60%, and people tend to overestimate their physical activity levels up to 100%.
Wow.
So it's very easy to think that you're doing a lot, but unless you measure, if you want to really go into detail and find out why things are not happening the way you want them to happen, if you go into detail and measure things, you'll often find that somewhere you've mismatched.
Okay, so that takes us on to exercise. What is enough exercise? How much is enough exercise?
There are nationally recommended guidelines on exercise and physical activity. At the moment, adults are recommended to do about 150 minutes of moderate physical activity a week, or 75 minutes of more vigorous physical activity a week, plus 2 sessions of sort of strength or resistance-based exercise. That's the recommended guidelines. I would not say that people have to meet those guidelines strictly. It depends on the person and the type of activity they're doing. For example, somebody who trains and lifts weights in the gym for 2 hours a couple of times a week would probably meet those guidelines because they're doing strength and aerobic activity at the same time. Somebody who's never exercised before in their life, you wouldn't expect them to suddenly go up to doing 75 minutes of vigorous activity a week. So as much as you can do, but working your way up to sort of a sustainable level is important for you.
So I'm sure it's the same for you at work, but often I hear things like, I walk the dog every day, or I do lots of gardening, or I travel to and from work with public transport. Is that enough exercise?
It depends. It depends on the person and the type of exercise they're doing. The guidance is aimed at planned exercise, and that exercise should increase your heart rate, make you slightly breathless, and make you sweaty at least. So if those things are not doing that, then it's not counted as exercise, as planned exercise. It does contribute to your daily activity levels, your daily steps, which are all great for your general health, but not to planned exercise. And it would vary from person to person. One person doing gardening for an hour, it might be very light work for them, whereas another person, it might be much more of a vigorous task for them, and that might be you could class that as a planned physical activity. But it varies from person to person.
Thank you for coming. It's really informative, and I'd love for you to come back to talk about more diet and exercise topics.
You're welcome, and I definitely would love to come back.
Thank you. For more information, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube and Twitter at The Clinic Diaries, and Felicia at... Stay tuned and there'll be more.